We are in the second week of August. Salmon season is just around the corner. They will be running in full force here in about 1 month. And a lot of people have been asking me lately, what to use, what lures I use, what baits I use, how to rig up. So I'm going to take my time and show you what I do and how I rig up for salmon. The biggest misconception is people think you have to snag them or line them to catch them, but that's false. They don't feed when they enter the rivers to spawn, but they do bite, and knowing how to get that reaction from them or what senses to work on to catch them is very important. And once you really pin those down and can key in on those senses, your day on the river will be much more rewarding and successful than actually trying to snag the fish. The biggest thing I tell people all the time, if you're trying to snag a fish, you're casting your hook out and you're hoping that when you jerk the rod back, there just happens to be a fish there. Well, when you actually fish for them, whether you're throwing a lure or throwing eggs, you're attracting the fish to you. So if there's a fish 6 feet away that sees your lure coming by, he's going to come to that lure and he's going to attack it. And you're going to get that fish. If the fish is 6 feet away from your hook that you're just trying to snag him with, you're not catching that salmon because you're not going to hook it. And I'm glad you're not. So we're going to go over a few techniques that will definitely make your day on the water a little bit more successful, more rewarding, and a lot more fun. Alright, by far the most exciting way and my favorite way to fish for salmon is using lures. It's just amazing when these fish hit, especially if you are in a location where you can see them, because they will chase a lure down the whole way across the stream and just slam it. It is pure aggression, and when you do hook the fish, they are just on fire because they're full of piss and vinegar. They just want to fight, and it is 100% amazing. So I'm going to show you the lures that I use and tell you a little bit about each one, when I fish them, why I fish them, and go over the key benefits to each one. There are two main styles of lures that I fish for salmon with. The quick fish style, or the flat fish, which are these guys here, and a jointed rapala in a J13 size. Uh, don't go smaller, the bigger is better. Now with lures, you're working in pure instinct with a salmon. You're working on their aggressive nature. They're just pissed off all the time. When they're behind a hen trying to spawn, the males are jockeying for position. Anything that gets close to them that's a threat, they chase out of the area. So that's why when you do choose a lure for salmon, generally you go with something bright, something obnoxious. You don't want something subtle or natural. You can catch fish on lures that are darker colors, but generally you want to go crazy. When in doubt, freak him out. That's the basic motto with salmon. You want something just bright as possible. Uh, with the J13 Rapala, mostly I fish this lure at night. It just seems to produce the best at night. If I fish it during the day, it's when the salmon are positioned near the surface because they're only about 2 or 3 feet down, which is exactly where this lure dives. When I fish this, it's casting it across the stream and you retrieve it just fast enough so that the tail wiggles. You don't want to rip it through the water like you're fishing for bass. It's just something that you need, that wiggle, something to agitate the salmon to get them going. The next style is the quick fish or the flat fish. It's a banana shaped lure. This one is rigged up with a bead chain and a single hook. Depending where you fish around the Great Lakes and where I fish in New York, this rig is actually illegal in most places. This is legal in a lot of places, which doesn't make sense with the treble hooks. The hookup ratio on a single hook and bead chain is 100 times better than two treble hooks. You have a lot less resistance when you're setting the hook with the single C-wash hook on a bead chain. They don't have the leverage to toss the hook off because this bead chain just rotates. And the simple fact of the matter is, a lot of salmon, when they come up and strike at a lure, they actually don't hit the lure. They'll come up and they'll swipe right behind it. Well, with this hook just hanging there, when they come up and swipe at it, it gets them in the corner of the mouth every time. This lure works great when you want to fish a little bit deeper, and because it will dive down. And just like the Rapala, you don't want to work it fast. This lure has a very wide wobbling action. It's something that throws off a lot of vibration. The longer you can keep it in front of the fish, the better. And with salmon, you want to go big and obnoxious. The brighter the color, the better it is. You're working on their instinct. You're basically trying to tick them off. I stood in front of you and just kept waving my hand in front of your face, you're eventually going to get pissed off and you're going to hit me. That's exactly what you're trying to do with the salmon. This is a little bit larger size. You can see the braid that I still have tied on the eye from last year. Some places where the single hook with the bead chain is illegal, I'll throw the 2 treble hooks on the quick fish. I've caught a lot of salmon this way, but at the same time, I've lost more salmon than I should have, just because it's extremely hard to set these 2 giant hooks into a fish's mouth with the rods that I use and a rod that really makes it effective. If you have a lake rod or something that's just super stiff, it works great. But even at the same time, because these hooks are so close to the fish's mouth, they can easily just pop them right out. When you hook a fish on a lure, or any salmon really, as soon as you hook them, they start shaking their heads. So, the single sea wash is definitely the way to go if it's legal where you fish. If not, I wouldn't recommend it, just because it's not worth the fine. As far as line goes when fishing a lure, if I plan on throwing lures most of the day and not fishing with bait or anything else, I'll throw a 30-pound braid. When you have this lure going through the water in front of fish, by fish, they're focused on the lure. They're not looking at the line. They're not worried about the line. 2 things are going to happen. They're going to spook and run away from it, or they're going to come up and murder it. So with my lures, like I said, I like to use 30-pound braid. These lures aren't cheap, so if you do hook a salmon, you want to land them to get your lure back. And a big thing with using 30-pound braid is with lures is when you get a fish to hit these, they are aggressive, active fish. They're not sluggish. They're chasing it down, they're crushing it, and you're going to have a fight on your hands. A lot of the times when I'm fishing my Rapalas at night, and throughout the day, if I'm going to switch over to floats and eggs, I'll use 12-pound fluorocarbon. You can use 15-pound, that works fine. 12-pound is just what I use. It works best in most of the conditions that I fish. It still has plenty of weight to land the salmon with. You do have to play them a little bit longer than you would with 30-pound braid, but it works perfectly fine. With these longer lures, generally you don't have to worry about the salmon biting you off, because with the length, I have hooked a lot of salmon with the back treble hook in their throat, but just with the length of the lure, your line is still far enough away from their teeth that you don't have to worry about losing it.